There is no such statement or any indication from our side. We want good relation with all our neighbors and the countries of the region.
Namaste and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I am Anand Narsimhan. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier in the day I was speaking to somebody who was from Afghanistan, and the person asked me a very interesting question. He said, let's just go back to where it all started. This is a nation which has been fighting strife and war, and which there has been an attempt to dominate and control for the last 100 years. If the Afghans had gone to Russia, they could have been called the aggressors. If the Afghans had gone to the US, they could have been called the aggressors. But didn't they all come to Afghanistan in the first place? He asked. I turned around and I asked him, what next? Now those who claim to be fighting for the Afghans are there holding the gun against Afghans, and they're all fighting against each other. So he said, there are some common threads where this entire divide and rule seems to have worked. But ladies and gentlemen, there is a challenge. There is a challenge, and we here at CNN News 18 have been trying to bring to you all the perspectives. Be it Amrullah Saleh, the caretaker president, a Tajik, again the ethnic differences come to the fore. Be it Sohail Shaheen, the Taliban spokesperson, Mohammad Fahim Dashti, who I spoke to, who's very close to Ahmad Masood, or Sher Mohammad Stanekzai. All of these people are those who claim to have Afghan interests in mind. All of these people are those who believe that there is an equation that can be set with India, which is a people-to-people connect and on the spirit of friendship. These are all people who have always seen India as a friend and as an ally. So, the question is, as a country, do we engage with those who are proscribed, who are branded, deemed as terrorists, as gun-toting militia, who started as pipeline police cultivated by the Pakistan Army and the ISI, and today are in charge of running a country who they never thought they will ever run, and they have no clue what to do? So what do we do? And will these various tentacles, Hydra-like tentacles that have been created, these jihadi groups, will they come to our doorstep? What are the intentions of the Taliban, especially vis-a-vis India? Courtesy our investigations editor Manoj Gupta, we spoke with Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanekzai, number 3 in the Taliban political leadership and a key member of the Shura, the think tank, the ideological, philosophical, theological think tank of the Taliban. He's trained at the IMA. He's been to India. He's worked with our soldiers. He's lived here. He knows who we are and how we are. But this is a world exclusive. Just set your own perspectives and perceptions aside and listen to this man, and then we will take it forward. Greetings to all our viewers here at CNN News 18. We are back with yet another major, mega CNN News 18 world exclusive, ladies and gentlemen. At a time when Mullah Khundzad has surfaced, he has touched down at Kandahar, we are joined by the Deputy Political Officer of the now claimed Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, and he's also head of the negotiating team with America. This is Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanekzai with us. Mr. Abbas Stanekzai, namaste, and thank you for speaking with us here at CNN News 18. My first question to you, with respect to India, how do you see the Taliban's administrative view towards our country?
The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan the policy, our foreign policy is that to have good relation with our all neighbors and all the countries of the region and as a whole, with the whole world. You see, the Americans and NATO forces were here, there in Afghanistan for the last 20 years. So after this page is over, when the American forces are withdrawing from Afghanistan, so we will have a friendly relation after this with America and NATO also. So we need them that they should come back and take part in rehabilitation of Afghanistan. Same goes to India also. We want to have close friendly relation and establish those relations which we had before, cultural relation, economical, and also other ties which we had with them, not only with India, but with all our neighboring countries, including Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Iran, and Pakistan.
Mr. Stanikzai, what you say is very, very critical, because I'm going to once again tell our viewers this is the first ever interview of the Taliban top leadership, a member of the Taliban top leadership. It's not a spokesperson. It's the first ever. And this is a huge, huge commitment that the Taliban will be making. What they say and what Mr. Stanikzai says is very, very critical, because this perhaps could chart the way forward for us. So my next question, Mr. Stanikzai, to you is that there is a fear that the Taliban may be hostile to India and that they may team up with Pakistan and target us, that is India. How do you see this assessment? Is this correct or false?
You see, one is media. What comes in the media, most of them, they are false. They are wrong. There is no such statement or any indication from our side. We want good relation with all our neighbors and the countries of the region.
Because Mr. Stanikzai, and I'm sure you are also aware of it, that the all-pervading fear across the world, and especially with us here in India, is that Afghanistan should not become a sanctuary for terror groups, for them to come there, use that as a base, and then orchestrate yet another proxy war on our soil, especially outfits like the Lashkar and Jaish, which are openly backed by the ISI in Pakistan. What are your thoughts?
There was no threat throughout the history from Afghanistan to our neighbors, including India, and it will not happen at all. There is no doubt there is long dispute, political dispute, and geographical dispute between India and Pakistan. We hope these two countries should not use Afghanistan in their internal fighting which they have. They have a long border among themselves. They can fight among themselves on the border. They should not use Afghanistan, and we will not let anyone, any of these two countries, to use Afghanistan for this.
That's a very strong statement, and I'm going to once again tell our viewers, this is the Taliban top leader speaking to us. This is a world exclusive, and what he says is of immense amount of significance. It's huge significance, the statement that you're making, Mr. Stanikzai, a very strong statement that you will not allow the likes of the Lashkar and the Jaish play in your territory. Are you willing to confirm that once again? I'm going to press you there yet again.
This is our duty. We will not allow anyone to use the Afghan soil against any countries of the world.
Mr. Stanikzai, you have a connection which goes back a few decades with India. You trained at the IMA. Would you like to share with our viewers what are your memories from that experience, your connect, the time that you spent here in India?
It was long before. It was my young age. Yes, I was trained there before the Russian came to Afghanistan. So I was undertaking in IMA for graduated from IMA.
Are you still in touch with some of your mates from that time?
No, not in India.
Let me ask you this. What we saw in Kabul was a travesty. It's a huge tragedy. So many lives lost. Who do you blame?
You know that in the media, the Daesh, they took the responsibility.
But the reports that we have, Mr. Stanikzai, is that there were intel reports, confirmed intel reports, that the Haqqani will do the blast and the IS Khorasan will take the blame. What do you have to say on that as far as the Kabul blasts are concerned?
This is what the enemies of the Afghan people, they say so. it is not true. It is completely false, and the responsibility was taken by Daesh. So it is completely known that the Daesh has done this.
Mr. Stanikzai, another question is about minorities in Afghanistan, Hindu and Sikhs who are still there, who want to come to India. Will you facilitate their evacuation? These are Afghan Hindu Sikhs.
I think there is no requirement to evacuate them. Afghanistan is their homeland, their country, so they can live in Afghanistan peacefully. There will be no threat, no harm to their life, personal life. They can live as they were living before. And we hope that those other Sikhs and Hindus which were in Afghanistan and they migrated for the last 20 years because of that previous regime to India, we hope that we should soon see them in Afghanistan should they come back.
One of the critical aspects for the Taliban is recognition. How do you view recognition by the world and also your expectations from India?
Inshallah, we hope this because now on the ground, the reality is that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is on the ground, and there are many things that our neighbors and the world, they require to have a good relation and political relation with us. And moreover, inshallah, when the new government is announced, so we hope that all those countries who are related in the region, especially United States and other countries, they will recognize the new government. Inshallah, we hope this.
Mr. Stanikzai, India has invested and worked on close to more than 500 projects in Afghanistan, including the parliament building. The safety of those projects, the continuing utility of those projects for the people of Afghanistan is a concern. What do you think will happen to these projects?
Those development things which they have done, this is our national assets. We will keep it like that, and we hope that in future it should be completed. We will invite India to come and start again and complete those projects.
That is encouraging, but are you saying you will provide security and you will ensure the safety of all the personnel who come to finish those projects, maintain, upkeep those projects?
Yes. If somebody is coming and they are working in your country, you have to provide that security. I think there is no need to ask such questions for like this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Stanikzai. I know this time for interaction is short. We look forward to another interaction very, very soon. Thank you for speaking to us here at CNN News 18. Namaste. So that was Sher Mohammad Stanikzai. What do they say about upgrades? They say the interface changes. The interface is more user-friendly. Many believe that the Taliban's interface now with the world, with the Western media is more user-friendly. But the core or the basic nature of the coding of the app remains the same, ladies and gentlemen. So can they really be trusted is a big question. What they were in the past, what they are now, let's just get a quick comparison here and understand who they were in the 90s. Are they the same even now? Now in the 90s, they were a radical insurgent group, but in 2021, they're a stakeholder in a political settlement in Afghanistan where the US, which came here to ensure that they eradicate the Al-Qaeda, thought the Taliban, despite the fact that their forces along with the Afghans were fighting the Taliban, said we will give them legitimacy. We will recognize them. Under the Trump administration and the Biden administration followed it through. Allowed Afghanistan to become a terror hub. They are desperate for international, not international, international legitimacy. But the fact is, based the Afghan policy on stands of Russia and Iran. And right now, India is closer to US. We as a nation at that time actually backed the northern alliances with Russia and Iran. And it was a Cold War kind of a situation, US versus Russia and our play. But geopolitically, we are different now. Saw Taliban as fundamentalist Islamists. Now the world is watching to the situation to see whether or not if Taliban can be trusted. And this is from an India perspective. How are we saying? Wait and watch is what saying. Because we don't know which way this whole thing is going to roll. It's right there and it's going all over the place. They themselves don't know. We have to wait, we have to see what happens on the 1st of September. But clear-cut backing for the Northern Alliance in the 90s. There was help that went through via Tajikistan. And that's why the Northern Alliance and Panjshir, where the resistance is even now, was able to take on the Taliban at that time. But right now it's localized. Post-US Taliban deal may look positively at Taliban because there seems to be far greater international recognition across the board on that UN P5, UN Security Council P5, that we've got to give it to these guys. Otherwise, there is not going to be any stability. But these guys, do they really know what to do? Taliban invited Al-Qaeda and Pak terror groups. So the Al-Qaeda, Lashkar, Jaish, all of these, they all grew and offshoots of each other and they were interlinked. There are 4 or 5 of the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan who switched over and formed this Daesh Khorasan. So somewhere they're all connected. Haqqani's offshoot, this Aslam Farooqi has worked across these lot. Suspicious of Pakistan because it says it will keep Pakistan terror groups out. But will they be able to do it? That's the umbilical cord. So will they be really able to snip it and say, oh, we're going to do it on our own? That we'll talk about. So these are the Taliban-Pakistan equations also, which we need to consider as we set up the discussion for tonight. So can Taliban be really trusted to keep terror at bay? Quite ironical, ladies and gentlemen, that a group that was itself called a terrorist group, a group that was itself proscribed, and many said are scum, they should need to be eradicated, wiped out. Not until long ago, that was the story, as far as the Afghan crisis is concerned. Today, we are turning around and saying, which is the lesser of the two evils? And can the lesser of the two evils, is it the Taliban? Can we really engage with them? And if we have no choice, if the world is looking at recognizing them, should we? Or should we actually follow what the US is actually saying and doing? Lieutenant General B.S. Jaswal, former Army Commander, Northern Command, is with us. Colonel Lawrence Sellen, retired US Army officer, is back with us. Good to have you back with us, Colonel. Thank you very much. Zia Rasuli, Afghanistan evacuee, who's worked closely with the government there. He's worked in media. He's got a legal experience and acumen, understood. And thankfully, he was able to escape and get out before the strife began. Zia, good to have you back with us. Sushant Sareen and Dr. Tara Karta, experts and, of course, very well-known faces. Always a pleasure to speak to them. Gentlemen and the lady with us, thank you very much. This is the core question. Are we looking at now legitimizing the lesser of the two evils and hoping that they will be able to provide certain stability? Because the Taliban, of course, are ultimately about Afghanistan and their narrative is about Afghanistan. Or are we not left with any choice? General Jaswal, I've heard some of our other panelists before. Let me first ask you, sir, let me start the evening tonight with you. Can the Taliban really be trusted to keep terror at bay?
Well, my reaction to this is, as of now, we have to see whether they prove themselves to be true. Our experience of their Doha agreement, well, it was bad. And thereafter, the events which are spanning out now, they have got this chap Ejaz released. They have called this chap some Haq, who was
Aminul Haq,
who was associate of Osama. Yeah, Aminul Haq of Osama.
They've let him back into Nangarhar today.
Are they trying to... Exactly. You see, so the point is that if in case it wants to be an emirate and it wants to be listed out of the prescribed list of that 1967 and 1988 provisions of the UN Security Council, it has to prove itself. As per the international law, it has to prove itself that, well, it is a country, it is a genuine government. Whatever it said before it entered Kabul, that the ladies will be permitted, etc., they will not hound those who worked with the Afghan army. Well, they have been hounding them. The ladies have been confined. Today, of course, there is a statement that ladies will be free to move around, go for education. But these are, I think, very superfluous statements coming from them. They have to prove it. All the actions which they are doing, they have to prove it, and then only we can say that, yes, we can trust them. Otherwise, as of now, well, I put a question mark.
But my question, my point is, sir, how much of time are you willing to give them? And at a time when the US troops are still there, if rocket launchers are being fired and you need drones to negate 5 rocket launchers which are being planned to be fired, if there are Fidayeen attacks that are taking out 110 people, they're already having a field day.
You see, let the government be formed. Yes, you're right. Let the government be formed over there and let them pass strictures to their own cadres. They are saying that we will, the word used is train our cadres not to target people. I don't understand this word train. What do they mean? It's a policy which they have to implement. If this is there in their Zahem, that they have to carry on the Sharia laws, etc., well, the time can be quite a bit. So I think one cannot lay boundaries for time. It's very difficult. But let the government be formed. Let us see on ground how do they translate their policies. And it's for the world to see. Then only we can say. Time cannot be bounded, how much time it will take.
Well, Colonel Salen, how would you see? Have the US actually really unleashed a terror hydra again? And perhaps a far more dangerous one which puts up a benign front but can be very, very malignant? Because look at the hatred that is directed towards the US troops, sir. Colonel Sarin.
Yeah, I don't think the United States should recognize the Taliban, and I don't think the United States should give the Taliban, any Taliban government, aid until they prove that they can be trusted. And so far, I'm not very optimistic. As we just saw, the Islamic State of Khorasan is operating within Afghanistan. We know Al-Qaeda is back in Afghanistan. The Haqqani network is responsible for the security in the Kabul area. And we just learned that the head of Jaish-e-Mohammed, Masood Azhar, 2 weeks ago had a meeting with the Taliban leadership in Kandahar, and with the objective to join with the Taliban for attacks against India. So I don't see much change in terms of what the Taliban is doing now from what it did 20 years ago. The other problem that we face is the Taliban relationship with China, not just with Pakistan. I just learned in the last 18 hours that a large group of Chinese and Pakistani computer experts had gone to the Afghan National Directive Security and are going through all the files, the secret files that Afghanistan held. So I think there's also a danger of the relationship between the Taliban and China and Pakistan, because those countries want to dominate South Asia, both economically and militarily.
But what are the implications? How is it that the US think tank or the US polity, the administration, the military have left so much of evidence behind and so much of information behind, along with the arms and ammunition and perhaps billions and billions of dollars? Colonel Sarin.
Well, there were obviously a huge number of mistakes made by the United States and NATO and the allies that were fighting in this war. To begin with, they were fighting the wrong war. It was not an insurgency. It was a proxy war being waged by Pakistan against Afghanistan using the Taliban. So the whole idea that you could defeat the Taliban when it had sanctuaries and was supported by Pakistan was an impossibility. And we know that Pakistan is the epicenter of Islamic radicalism and Islamic terrorism in South Asia. None of those issues were never addressed. And I think the whole evacuation has been a disaster. Another thing I learned in the last 18 hours is that 4 American citizens, a mother who was born in Afghanistan and 3 children who were born in Texas, were escorted to the Kabul airport by the Taliban, no less, and they were not allowed inside the Kabul airport by order of the American commander on the ground there, Major General Chris Donahue. Apparently, on the orders of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. So it appears that the Biden administration is comfortable with leaving Americans stranded in Afghanistan.
But the fact is that even if we look at the letter that the U.S. Congress had written, members of the U.S. Congress and largely Republican had written to the Biden administration, Colonel Selin, and there also, you say Pakistan is the epicenter, but their concerns seem to be that Pakistan should not be destabilized by the Taliban. The last three questions actually say that Taliban should not acquire nuclear weapons from Pakistan. And then there seems to be a concern that Pakistan would be a victim and Pakistan is not seen as a perpetrator.
Well, Pakistan is indeed a perpetrator. As I just said, they created the Taliban. They've been supporting the Haqqani network. Al-Qaeda has a sanctuary in Pakistan. There are innumerable number of radical Islamist groups that are based in Pakistan, as you know, have been attacking India, mainly in Kashmir. So it should be obvious to everyone that the problem of terrorism is emanating from Pakistan, not so much from Afghanistan, only to the effect that Pakistan has now a great influence on Afghanistan. So I think they're missing the whole issue in terms of stability in South Asia if they're not focusing on Pakistan.
But the fact is, from the Trump administration and into the Biden administration, Dr. Tarakata, they seem to be knowing all of this, but still walking the wrong path. And today we have to really seriously contemplate as a nation whether we should look at preemptive strikes and say we have to secure our own interests because nobody is going to stand up for us.
Oh yeah, I think there is absolutely no hope that the United States is going to see Pakistan as it really is. I mean, like we said, finally, like someone said, it is so simple. The whole thing is that what Colonel Selin said, that a 60,000 proxy army is being supported by a nuclear weapon state. I mean, that is the reality. It's as simple as that. But today we've seen that they are more, like you said, more concerned that Pakistani nuclear weapons will come. You know, that narrative that Pakistan nuclear weapons are threatened by Pakistan, by Taliban, by terrorists, by all. This is a narrative which has been pushed by Pakistan itself. So whichever way they go, they take advantage of the situation. So now they'll say, we are under threat, we need aid, we need assistance, we need you to come back and, make sure that we are okay. Which is not the case. No one is going to take Pakistan's nuclear weapons. They are actually under very safe. I have to say, the Pakistan army is a very professional force. They know how to look after their weapons. It's as simple as that. But when you talk about should we trust the Taliban, what you have to think is whether the Taliban can trust the Taliban. There are wheels within wheels there.
Yes.
So when, say, Staniksai tells you something, certainly that sounds very good, and I'm sure he means what he says. But there are people, not just the Haqqanis, there's a whole criminal enterprise which is being run from within Afghanistan, which will do whatever it wants to do. And there are operational commanders who don't much. Well, they're not too comfortable with the lot who have come from Doha and have hijacked the whole thing. These are the guys who will feel we fought the war. And look at these guys who come from luxurious lifestyles. They'll come and just hijack the whole thing. So first thing we have to see is whether, I'm sure at some level India should go back and help. After all, our commitment is to the Afghan people. We should go back and help them in getting infrastructure. But we have to wait until Kabul, that is the Taliban leaders, have more control over their own people.
Right.
That they all, mean what they say. I think that is the biggest challenge for Afghanistan.
No, I agree. I've just got that letter. 69 members of the U.S. Congress, Zia, as I come across to you, they opened it up. they've written this letter. I've just opened it here. I'm trying to open it and show you these questions if I can on my laptop. Yeah, there you go. So with your permission, I'm just going to show. Look at these 3 questions, and if you can see these 3 questions, the questions that they say, and which really shocked me. 69 members of the U.S. Congress have signed this. There are some U.S. senators in this also. Now, this question, it says, what is your plan to ensure American influence in the, beg your pardon, what is your plan to counter the Chinese Communist Party's growing relationship with the Taliban? As if they didn't know? Did they not know this? Then, the other question that is, do you plan to support any free Afghanistan resistance or security force that organizes the outside of Afghanistan? But the US only recognized the Taliban. Under the Trump administration, they recognized Taliban and they said Pakistan is going to play an inclusive role. Now, this is the concerning question. Do you have a plan to ensure that Afghanistan under Taliban occupation will never acquire a nuclear weapon? But what's the question before that? Are you prepared to support regional allies militarily in the event that the Taliban militarize the Afghanistan border? What is your plan to help ensure that Taliban does not destabilize its nuclear neighbor Pakistan? This is US members of the US Congress and senators putting their signatures to questions like this. Despite it is them who recognize the Taliban, it is them who said Pakistan has to play an inclusive role, it is them who say that Pakistan is the one which respects the Taliban. And now they're turning around and saying, what are you going to do for resistance movement and what are you going to do for this here? How do you see what's developing there?
Yeah, good evening to everyone. It's really sad, when I see these dirty politics played by the US government, one of the largest democracies in the world. I mean, we Afghans, we have been betrayed greatly by the US government, by all their leadership, be it Trump, be it Biden, be it, all these senators. Well, first of all, these questions, I'm sure you all know that Pakistan has a very strong lobby in the US. So they have played a big role, by creating such documents. They're trying to somehow, divert the attentions and do other things, like our honorable lady here rightly mentioned that, the main concentration or main emphasis should be the people of Afghanistan. This is what we should be concentrating on. I think these are all just, diversions created by the Pakistani intelligence. First of all, all these evil, as I would call it or describe it, that have been created in Afghanistan, they were all created in Pakistan. They were born there, bred there, and then sent to Afghanistan. There is absolutely no question about that. No one can deny that. Afghan people know who the enemy of Afghan people is, and that is, without a doubt, Pakistan and Pakistani government. We're not talking about people of Pakistan. We're just talking straight about Pakistani government and its agendas. For whatever reason, be it Turan line, be it some other issues, vendetta, whatever you call it, but it's there. It's been there for the last 40 years, over 40 years. Now, we are in a situation where the U.S. lied to everyone, including you guys, including India, all the neighboring countries, all the friendly countries around us. We've all been lied to. Joe Biden, he said to the very end, to the fall of Kabul, that they will attack Taliban, they will stop them at the borders of the cities, they will not allow them to enter Kabul. Kabul would be their, red line, and nobody can cross us. If they do, we will, bombard them or whatever. And none of those happened. I mean, all the bombardment around the other cities, around other provinces, they were all a lie, a big lie. The Afghan army was betrayed. Our leadership, our government was betrayed. There were a lot of people who were, again, trained and brought up in Pakistan. They were in the government and they played a very big role. There was a white coup as well within the government.
Yes.
I'm not trying to say that Ghani was the perfect leader. He was not. He was also responsible for a lot of things that happened, but there were other elements as well.
Yeah.
So Afghanistan is now lost. It is lost in a situation where I don't think anyone can help because we're talking about a fighting force that can actually take over Afghanistan in 11 days. And now suddenly you hear that Daesh attacked somebody in Kabul. I mean, that is ridiculous. If the strong government with 300,000 forces cannot withstand the force of Taliban, do we really think that Daesh or any other group can actually do any activity in Afghanistan to that extent that they can actually bomb something or fire rockets? There's absolutely no way. There are no guns now in Kabul. I'm in contact with everybody in Kabul and other cities. It's a constant contact with all these groups, with people, with people who are in the government, in the police, in the army. I'm in contact with them. And they are telling me that there are no guns anymore. There are no armored vehicles anymore. Taliban have seized all of them. They, as you probably remember, there was a press conference by Zabihullah Mujahid, Taliban spokesperson, that he said that people have only 1 week to surrender all their government arms and vehicles. So that has already been completed or under completion.
Correct.
So
So let me ask you this. So will you say that the Taliban, Zia, because I'll bring in Sushant Sareen on this aspect. Will you say that the Taliban and the Daesh Khorasan are independent units? Al-Qaeda, Daesh Khorasan, Haqqani, Taliban, are they all connected or are they actually different from each other? And is there a tussle between them?
I know, in my belief, in my experience and my knowledge, they are independent entities, independent groups, but they are all tied up with Pakistan. So the roof is one. And, the Pakistan has a choice which one to be used at what particular time. That is their choice. So, but overall, they don't share the operations unless it is absolutely necessary. But there are ties between them. It's not that they're completely separated. There are connections. There are links between them. But the main goal is different, and also they're independent. They act independently.
Well, two aspects, and I'm going to take this forward with Sushant Sareen. Sushant, thank you for your patience. We just try and assimilate everybody's thoughts, and then I'm coming across to you. Two things. Colonel Selen says that the Chinese are present there inside the NDS. We had the other day we had information which said that the Taliban and the Pakistanis now have Taliban, and via the Taliban, the Pakistanis have, and via the Pakistanis, the Chinese have access to biometric data of all those people who have worked with allies of the US or with governments who have taken on, with the erstwhile government. Biometric data is available. And now we have somebody like Zia who turns around and asks a very interesting question, saying if 70,000 people can run roughshod right across Afghanistan and also beat 300,000 troops, how is it that they cannot control these attacks which are happening in Kabul?
Yeah, so I think that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe $5 billion question, because that's the kind of money that the Taliban and their sponsors are looking for to run the horror show which they are now, visiting upon Afghanistan. They need the money. One way of doing it is that Pakistanis, whenever they are in trouble, they monetize their nuclear assets. And the American congressmen obviously have fallen for that strategy. So what I mean by monetizing the nuclear assets is that they've this threat that, what will happen to these nuclear weapons if the Taliban take over? Well, the Taliban in khaki uniforms already have possession of the nuclear weapons. But these Taliban who are in Pakistan army, they are not exactly suicidal, not yet anyways. But if they turn suicidal, who knows? And then the Americans are not going to get their hands on this thing anyway. But again, the Americans helped them get these nuclear weapons. But that's another story for another day. Number one. Number two, Listen, yaar, this whole thing that there is this huge terrorism threat, that ISKP is a threat to the world. How is it a threat to the world? What are the numbers with the ISKP? Please tell me. Not more than 1,000, 2,000. You want to really be very charitable, say 5,000 people at best. Okay, these guys are concentrated in 2 or 3 districts. If you want to be very charitable, 2 or 3 provinces in eastern Afghanistan, in very remote areas. Most of these guys have connections, very strong connections inside Pakistan, which is all documented, nothing unknown about it. Many of them, in fact, almost 90% of these guys are either Pakistani Taliban or Afghan Taliban who have now taken the franchise of Daesh or IS.
Yeah.
Okay, that is what their background is. But suddenly to make the Taliban look respectable, and it's so convenient that just on the eve of withdrawal, just as the withdrawal is about to be completed, you have this spectacular terror attack in which 160, 70 people die. You then have these rockets being fired. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? And then the entire Western media then starts plastering this nonsense that the Taliban will now save us. Even Anand, to be honest, you yourself fell for it. When you asked, is it the lesser of the two evils? What the hell do you mean by lesser of the two evils? Listen, till 2 weeks back, the Taliban were doing precisely what the IS is doing.
Correct.
How is it lesser of the two evils? How is it going to protect the world when all the Al-Qaeda, the Abu Sayyaf group, you name the terrorist organization, it has its fingerprints and its footprints in Afghanistan with the Taliban. You mean to tell me that just because this fellow Stanakzai comes up and spouts some nonsense in that interview with you, that he should be taken seriously? What about all the overwhelming evidence which tells you that the Taliban are very closely linked with the Al-Qaeda, are very closely linked with all manners of terror groups? We know that, don't we? And yet we keep falling for this thing that,
but the fact is,
the Taliban are the good guys, the lesser of the two evil, as you put it.
No, Sushantji,
once again, Anand,
please complete.
Okay, the other thing, that the Taliban are entirely a local Afghan-centric group. Just because the Taliban fellow cannot go to Europe or America or someplace and tie a suicide jacket around him and blow himself up, does not make him a local group. If he gives sanctuary to terrorists from around the world and he tells everybody, in fact, just today, apparently the Taliban have told the Pakistanis that, listen, TTP is your problem, not my problem. Okay? So if you want to tackle the TTP problem, you talk to them directly. Which means that they want their people to be rehabilitated in Pakistan. Which means that you will have a kind of a Pashtun civil war where all progressive Pashtuns are going to be butchered in Pakistan, and the Pakistan army will be very happy with it because of their larger strategic game plan. Okay, so this is a witch's brew which is there in front of us.
Correct, I agree.
To fund this witch's brew, will be the greatest criminal act anybody can do. Give them any money,
but the fact is, Sushantji,
and Anand, one last one. India's relations, whatever the policy we decide to do in Afghanistan, is not contingent on whether the Americans accord recognition or they don't accord recognition. I think that is a judgment in its wisdom or the lack of it the government of India will make on the basis of what it sees serving India's interest.
But this is exactly but the fact is, it is always about a game. It's always a game of narratives, isn't it, Sushant Sareen? The reason why I am no advocate of the Taliban. Like I said they have got a fantastic interface. The interface is more user friendly, and I was very candid when I said that. The coding is the same. The core coding and embedded coding is the same. It's not changed. But the user interface is far more amenable, and it is user friendly. That is exactly what my point is. And why am I saying lesser of the two evils? Because lesser of the two evils is the narrative that's being pushed. The lesser of the two evils is because the Taliban were recognized an outfit which was proscribed, an outfit which was rejected, an outfit against whom the forces were fighting, Afghan people, American and NATO. Today were told that they have to be given legitimacy along with a nation which everybody knows is a hotbed for creation of these Hydra. And they said both have to play a role. The world was watching it. UN was watching it. When Trump went ahead and signed that agreement, saying, I don't recognize you, but you are the Islamic Emirate of Taliban, which we call as Emirate of Afghanistan, which we call as Taliban. You see the heading of that agreement. And you look at it and say, well, I need to have 4 cups of coffee and perhaps run and a huge burst of adrenaline to even understand the title and what is written and what they mean by it. But the world agreed it. The world did not say anything. Even today, what you and me are saying, you know, the world is not turning around. Has the UN Security Council turned around and asked America, how dare you do what you have done? How dare you empower the Taliban? Has anybody turned around and asked them? Nobody turned around and asked them, how dare you land in Afghanistan? Nobody turned and asked the Russians 20 years ago, why did you land there and what are you trying to do to create a war there? Nations where these nations have gone have been ravaged. Finished. Vietnam, finished. Iraq, finished. Syria, finished. Every place. What has been done? Nobody turns around and asks these questions because then they control the narrative. So this narrative building is happening. So you and me can get upset about it, but nations are not. Has India taken a position so far? Have we as a nation? Can we take a position? We don't recognize the Taliban and put lives at risk. We can't take a position like that. Can we take a position?
Why can't we take a position?
Sir, because we are not right now. Candid, we are not China or America that they can get away with trying to destroy nations and stand up and tell the UN, I've got veto, so you can't take action against me. We are not strong enough.
Not recognizing the Taliban, sticking to your guns, does not mean destroying a country. We have never destroyed any country, have we? So it doesn't mean that. It means that, okay, we will hold on, we will wait and see how things plan out.
Kal Sher Mohammad Stanikzai becomes your foreign minister, will you not engage with him?
No, why would you, if you're not recognizing that country?
My point, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Can you ignore an entity like Afghanistan? Because the people of Afghanistan will be controlled by this lot only. And till the time they are gone, till the time they are gone, you will have. So will you not engage with Afghan people?
No, you will engage with Afghan people, but you don't have to engage with
them. If you have to engage with Afghan people, then you will have to engage with the people who have been entrusted with this administration. Sir, the US and the NATO forces have empowered the Taliban. They have given $85 billion of arms and ammunition. Are they going to be sanctioned, sir? Is the UN going to be proscribed? Is the UN going to pull up America for the loss of 110 lives in Kabul and blame them for these explosions? They have not even said a word against the Taliban.
One second. You're getting ahead of yourself. Look, let's talk about India. Helping Afghan people does not mean recognizing the Afghan government. Number one. Number two, if this Afghan government, as I'm pretty sure, is going to be a horror show, and this is going to basically, this is the Pakistani colony it's become, Afghanistan. Then if you recognize them, then you are recognizing Pakistan's invasion of Afghanistan.
But Sushant ji, to all my panelists and to you, who has pulled up Pakistan in the first place? For all that the Pakistanis have done, don't you think they should have been immediately sanctioned? And the first drone strike, the first drone,
have been sanctioned 20
correct,
years
but
back.
nahi kiya na, Sushant ji, nahi kiya na. Kisi ne nahi kiya. Let's just quickly, I just want to quickly show, this is the reason why, ladies and gentlemen, the Daesh and the Taliban, what is similar and what is different? Both are armed extremist group. Are they any different there? No, they are not. Let's quickly go through that. Both are radical Sunni Islamist outfits. Again, theologically, they have the same offshoot. Both espouse a harsh interpretation of the Sharia law. Then, Taliban seeks power in Afghanistan, sees the Daesh as the enemy. That's the narrative that's put. Eyes Afghanistan as part of the global Islamic Caliphate and also a larger region of the Khorasan. Seen by the Daesh as soft on imposing Islamic principles. That's what they're claiming right now. Has recruited unhappy ex-Taliban hardliners. That's what they have done. So they just keep jumping, and especially because they have these internecine issues. Now, US sees the Taliban as a safety shield against the Daesh. That's now the latest this one, and has unleashed brutal atrocities, no holds barred carnage. That's what the Daesh would do. Again, Kabul airport blast reflected the antipathies. But was it the left hand telling the right hand, or left hand telling the right hand, you go ahead and slap, and I will go and offer the flower, and I'll say, very bad, the right hand is very bad. Now, the Khorasan engineered blast to counter Taliban aiding evacuations. So this is one aspect. fears of more terror clashes and Afghan suffering. I just want to quickly go across and show to you also, did they actually walk the talk? We're running out of time, so I'm going to walk across here and also show to you why we cannot trust them. The reason why is because they're not even walking the talk. What are the 4-5 commitments that they came out and made in the last 15 days? Have they actually walked the talk? Let's just quickly look at this. Respects press freedom, want independent media. And this is a presenter who has got the Taliban standing right behind him when he's supposed to tell the people that all is well. This is independence of the media in Afghanistan. Women's rights, the next talk that happened. The walk and the talk, the difference. Let women work as per his Islamic principles. Strict orders, women should not come out of the house. All women journalists, no need to come to work again. Sent back. Whether you're wearing hijab, whether you're following the rules as they're put, doesn't matter. Again, the talk, the next one, quickly, if we can see. Won't wreak revenge on former soldiers. They've been dragged out, named, list has been made. Some of them have been shot dead. The rest will be, the count will start from the 1st of September onwards. Assure safety for Sikh Hindu minorities. यहाँ पे रहो. इंडिया जाने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. आप महफूज हैं. As long as we tell you how you are supposed to be, but you can't go to India. So are they really walking the talk? Can we really trust the Taliban? But if we can't trust the Taliban, if you know that their coding is all wrong, like it was earlier, it's all corrupted. But should we go by the interface? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. I thank all our panelists. We wind up this debate. Short break and brass tacks post that. Stay with us.